what's happening around the world and what's happening here at home. A very good evening to and welcome to Weekend Primetime News. I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
President says we'll develop Sri Lanka's power grid together with India.
ඉන්දියාවේ විදුලි බල පද්ධතියයි ලංකාවේ විදුලි බල පද්ධතියයි දෙකම එකතු කරනවා.
Several protests staged against the electricity tariff hike. Police obstruct protesters in Gampola. Two officials who obstructed the import of fertilizer transferred. Farmers ready for the Maha season. Will the government be able to provide fertilizer in time? Was the deal to import fish from China marred with corruption? Fisheries associations raise concerns. For provinces to receive rainfall exceeding 100 millimeters, advisory for severe lightning issued. 5 suspects arrested for the possession of narcotics worth 4 billion rupees.
First up in news here at home, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that plans are afoot to develop Sri Lanka's power grid together with India, centering around the Mannar district. Speaking at an event in Mannar, President Wickremesinghe said that steps are being taken to alleviate Sri Lanka from bankruptcy.
The National Miladun-Nabi event was held today at the Mannar Muslim National School under the auspices of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
මේ ප්‍රදේශයේම විශාල සංවර්ධනයක් ඇති කරන්නට ඉන්නේ. දැනටම
we are preparing to bring about massive developments in this area. Already we have taken steps to establish transport via sea between India and Mannar. We started providing transport services in Kankasanture. Next, we will initiate it in Thalemanna. Along with that, we will combine the power grid of India and Sri Lanka. I would like to say that we will be doing this through Mannar. This is only the beginning. This connectivity of the power grid will develop further. Mannar will also develop along with it. The opportunity available here is green energy and a green economy. We can develop Mannar with the solar and wind power that we have. This will greatly develop the economy. This power will be transferred from Puttalam to Bulletin through the Jaffna Peninsula. We hope to establish Punarin as the center for all of this development. Also, we will make Mannar a tourism hub. When we develop the fisheries industry in Mannar as well, Mannar's economy will be renewed. Many requests were sent to me. I took over a bankrupt nation. We are still bankrupt. We are taking these steps to come out of bankruptcy. Therefore, let's continue this work methodically. That development needs to be there.
ඒ වැඩ කටයුතු අපි ක්‍රමානුකූලව කරගෙන යමු. ඒ දියුණුව තියෙන්න ඕනේ.
Meanwhile, police obstructed a protest held in Gampola today against the increase in electricity tariffs.
A protest was staged opposite the Gampola railway station against the recent electricity tariff hike. The protest was staged by the Gampola People's Struggle Council and civil activists. Police obstructed the protesters when they attempted to march to the Gampola bus halt to collect signatures for a public petition. The protesters continue to demonstrate despite the obstruction.
Dear police officer, when you go home and take off your uniform and buy books for your children, hear about the hardships that your wife is facing in the kitchen, when you can't pay off your bills, you will remember that you stopped the people who came to protest about these same issues. If they continue to attack us like dogs when we stay silent, and if they are pushing us to a point where we cannot settle our bills, if they are killing our children by administering them with substandard medicine, do you expect us not to protest?
State Minister of Finance Shehan Singh has said that losses incurred by the Ceylon Electricity Board needs to be financed by the CEB itself.
If any state-owned enterprise incurs a loss, that loss cannot be financed by the Treasury. Thereby, the CEB has the power to make independent decisions. The CEB will have to take steps to manage water, fuel and coal during the rainy season and cover their losses. In the future, the government will expedite the restructuring of state-owned enterprises, because if state-owned enterprises continue to operate unproductively, the likelihood of the general public having to shoulder an even greater burden is high. Therefore, I believe that this new financial frame will help Sri Lanka move towards better management. In that process, the government will have to change many steps and decisions taken in the past. Also, today we are following good practices accepted globally. That is the reason why we are able to bring the country to a point where the IMF, the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank and the other countries that supported our economy are able to resume their projects in the country.
Why is the Ceylon Electricity Board suffering losses? This is what Executive Committee member of the Jatika Jana Balawegaya, Nalin Hevage, had to say.
Why is the CEB suffering losses? Has anyone present here failed to pay their monthly electricity bills? No, you have all paid on time. A litre of petrol was 363 rupees. Has anyone here said, I only had 342 rupees and 90 cents? Can I give you 10 cents later? Has anyone here paid 10 rupees for a 50 rupee stamp and left an arrears of 40 rupees? No, we have never. You and I are honourable people. These unscrupulous leaders ruined all of this. In 2015, when Ranil Wickremesinghe came into power, the Ceylon Electricity Board had only 16,000 employees. Ranil employed an additional 9,000 employees. Was this required? No, he just wanted the votes. Now the CEB has 25,000 employees, but still they employ additional contractors to cut the branches on the road. Then is it a surprise that the CEB is suffering losses? Veeravansa's electricity bill was 118,000 rupees. Kehelia had an electricity bill of 15 million rupees that was unpaid. The CEB is not suffering losses because of us.
The hashtag Unite Trade Union Collective says that the government should immediately put a halt to oppressive price increments.
When these businessmen evade paying government charges and unjustly enrich their businesses, that burden too falls on the poor man of this country. Do we need a government for this? Now Ranil Wickremesinghe is trying to ruin this country by planting the IMF proposals in Sri Lanka in an effort to secure his position. If this is his intention, we would like to inform him that he won't be able to sit and hold office of president for much longer. The PUCSL's approach to this matter was completely wrong. The Public Utilities Commission has a responsibility to understand the price formula put forward by the Ceylon Electricity Board. They have not done that. We would like to inform the PUCSL if the people are being subjected to unjust price increments under Financial Regulation number 119, the party that is asking for permission for this increment and those who grant them permission should be held responsible for it. The only thing that the government can do to ensure their survival is increase electricity tariffs, increase fuel prices, increase the prices of goods and increase taxes. They are not even holding the elections. This government has disregarded the lives of the people and they are trying to remain in government by stealing every last rupee in the pockets of the people. We hope to unite all political parties, trade unions and mass organizations and stage a massive protest against this. We would like to inform the government to prepare to go home.
A protest was staged at the Naramala town against the electricity tariff hike and suppression of media. The general public signed a banner as a mark of protest against these actions of the government.
The current government is carrying out all of these reforms without the consent of the people. Nothing has been revealed regarding the deal between Ranil and Modi. Nothing has been spoken about these either in Parliament or the Cabinet. We know that right now they are trying to sell off our resources and state assets under the conditions imposed by the IMF. Ranil Wickremesinghe held a conference last evening and said that he is going to build a smart Sri Lanka by the year 2048. When Ranil Wickremesinghe is speaking about building a smart Sri Lanka, the government is trying to pass legislation to suppress social media. They are also trying to bring the anti-terrorism bill to suppress the general public.
සමාජ මාධ්‍ය වාරණ ගේන්න පනත් ගේනවා. ඒ වගේම ජනතාවගේ කට වහන්න ATA පනත් ගේනවා. මේ විදියට ජනතාව මත බදු ගහලා
all of these people, including Ranil Rajapaksa and Kanchana Wijesekara and this entire cabinet, who are imposing so many taxes on the general public and stealing the rights of the working class of Sri Lanka, you will have to go down the same path as Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
You're with News First, and up next is Action TV.
According to the policy decision reached by the government, the Ceylon Electricity Board can increase electricity tariffs more than 2 times in a year if the expenses of the CEB is 25% higher than the estimated cost. Since the recent electricity tariff hike was the third electricity tariff hike increase this year, the expenses of the CEB should have exceeded its estimate by 25%. Since an increase of 25% above the estimated expenses of the CEB for this calendar year would be an increase of 162.5 billion rupees, the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka should disclose these details that were submitted to the Commission justifying the tariff hike. It must be stressed that this is a duty of the PUCSL. Just 20 days after the electricity tariff was reduced by 14%, that is on the 21st of July 2023, the CEB had requested for another electricity tariff hike by forwarding this letter to the PUCSL. The General Manager of the CEB had informed the PUCSL that the CEB is to suffer a loss of 33 billion rupees and requested permission from the Commission to increase tariffs. In 7 days, the PUCSL rejected the request of the CEB with a detailed response to the facts presented by the CEB to the Commission. The Director General of the Commission had stressed that the PUCSL had created the environment for the CEB to earn a profit of more than 30 billion rupees during the last 6 months of this year. The Director General had further stressed that permission cannot be unfairly granted to increase electricity tariffs. The CEB then rolled back on its effort to increase electricity tariffs and wrote to the PUCSL via a letter dated 26th September that the CEB will suffer a loss of 30 billion rupees. It is surprising that after receiving this letter, the Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka had completely forgotten about the detailed response he himself sent to the CEB via letter dated 28th of July. The PUCSL that highlighted the fact that the CEB is slated to earn a profit of 30 billion rupees just 2 months ago is now oblivious to that fact and has allowed themselves to be misdirected by the unreliable information provided by the CEB. The decision taken by the PUCSL in February this year to increase electricity tariffs by 66% has been challenged in court. Among the respondents in that fundamental rights petition are these 3 members of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. The decision to increase electricity tariffs again was made by the Commission together with this individual, who is an academic well versed in his field of expertise.
The Ministry of Agriculture has decided to transfer 2 senior officials with immediate effect who were in charge of importing fertilizer.
The senior officials in charge of importing fertilizer were transferred as they had failed to call tenders for the import of fertilizer, even though it has been 3 months since the Cabinet of Ministers approved the purchase of urea fertilizer for the Maha season. The Ministry of Agriculture says there is a risk of an increase in the price of all types of fertilizer, including urea, in the global market due to the ongoing conflicts between several nations. According to the Ministry of Agriculture, if the fertilizer was purchased during the months of May, when the approval of Cabinet was received, it would have been possible to purchase urea fertilizer at a very low price. Accordingly, at that time, it was possible to purchase 1 metric ton of urea fertilizer for about $350. However, now, the price of a metric ton of urea has exceeded $650 in the global market. The Ministry of Agriculture announced that the government has incurred a massive loss as a result of this.
Will the price of fertilizer increase under this situation?
The Ministry of Agriculture says there is a risk of an increase in the price of fertilizer in the coming season. Its Secretary Gunadasa Samarasinghe says that this situation arose following the suspension of the fertilizer supplied from China. The Secretary added that ample urea fertilizer is available in the country for this farming season. He also said that stocks of urea fertilizer will be received by the 20th of November.
Is it possible to provide the required amount of fertilizer for the season?
Urea fertilizer. The amount of urea fertilizer required for the paddy and maize cultivations in the coming season is 150,000 metric tons. However, only 72,000 metric tons of urea fertilizer is available in the country. This includes a stock of 20,000 metric tons in government stores and 52,000 metric tons of urea fertilizer in the private sector. The National Fertilizer Secretariat says that 20,000 metric tons of urea fertilizer has been distributed among farmers so far. MOP fertilizer. Director of the National Fertilizer Secretariat Chandana Lokuheva says that 25,000 metric tons of MOP fertilizer is required for the upcoming farming season. The amount of MOP fertilizer currently available in the country is 50,000 metric tons. The government is in possession of 30,000 metric tons and the private sector has 20,000 metric tons. TSP fertilizer. TSP fertilizer is required at the start of the next farming season. 20,000 metric tons of TSP fertilizer is required for the season. At present, the government has distributed all the TSP fertilizer in their stores and the private sector has only 5,000 metric tons. The private sector also has 2,000 metric tons of SSP fertilizer, which is used as a substitute for TSP fertilizer. Director of the National Fertilizer Secretariat, Chandana Lokuheva, added that another 10,000 metric tons of TSP fertilizer will be imported within the next 2 months. The Maha season. The annual requirement of rice for the entire country is met by the harvest of the Maha season, which runs from October to February. At present, in some areas, the cultivation for the Maha season has begun and some farmers can be seen tilling their lands. TSP fertilizer should be used to provide the required phosphorus nutrients to the crops during the first week of cultivation, following which urea fertilizer should be used within 2 weeks' time to fulfill nitrogen requirements of the crops. Afterwards, to provide the required potassium to the crop, MOP fertilizer is used between 4 and 6 weeks of planting. Due to the organic fertilizer policy introduced by the previous government, fertilizer was not provided to the farmers at the right time and there was a significant decrease in their harvest. Later, the price of rice, which was around 60 rupees in the market, exceeded 220 rupees and the government had to bear a massive cost to import rice. The Aragalaya that led to the downfall of the entire government also began with the protest staged by farmers against not receiving fertilizer on time.
What has really happened? Following a meeting held today, the Minister of Agriculture gave this response regarding the fertilizer issue.
දැනටමත් කන්නේ ආරම්භ වන විටම
As the season begins, steps have been taken to provide fertilizer. They have been sent to the Agrarian Development Department. The private sector has become more active than usual. They have imported large quantities of fertilizer. They are involved in the distribution of fertilizer as well. We are providing our farmers with the opportunities to purchase fertilizer at a low cost from wherever they can. Moving forward, we also plan on providing financial aid as well. We will be transferring funds to the accounts of the farmers.
ගිනුමට සල්ලි ලබා දීමක් තමයි මේ වතාවේ සිද්ධ කරන්නේ.
However, farmers in Ampara recently said that despite the minister's statement, the reality on the ground is different. At the Ampara Farmers Committee meeting held on the 13th of the last farming season, the farmers pointed out that despite the land preparation for cultivation having begun, they have not yet received the TSP fertilizer they require.
15,000 rupees per hectare and 30,000 rupees per 2 hectares have been prepared to be remitted to the account of the farmer. This breaks down to 1,500 rupees per acre and 3,000 rupees per half acre. The government's prices for fertilizers include 50 kilograms of urea at 9,000 rupees per bundle. Additionally, the government has set the price of MOP fertilizer at 14,000 rupees for a 50 kilogram bundle. We have not yet decided a price for TSP. In the open market, TSP is currently available for prices ranging between 12,000 and 14,000 rupees.
When it comes to the recommendation that you mentioned, when you provide 6,000 rupees per acre, can the farmer buy all of that for 6,000? A bundle of urea fertilizer at the Department of Agrarian Development is 9,000 rupees and they cannot get the TSP as well. The farmer is no longer allowed to take loans from the banks. Why is that? The farmers cannot pay the loans back. We would like to ask how this recommendation was made for fertilizer.
However, paddy cultivation in the Maha season in the Ampara district must be done between the 10th of October and the 10th of November.
Do you remember?
Farmers were unable to cultivate their fields and continue with their livelihoods because of the inept decisions of the Gotabaya Rajapaksa government. Paddy fields were devastated without chemical fertilizer. Sri Lankan taxpayers' rupees were wasted by importing organic fertilizer from China. $6 million was paid to the ship carrying waste from China under the guise of importing organic fertilizer. In the end, Sri Lanka paid for the ship but didn't get any fertilizer. The liquid nitrogen fertilizer imported from India on board a plane was also useless. Although the Minister of Agriculture, who came after the promise to provide fertilizer at the right time, farmers say that their harvest was destroyed during the last season as they didn't get fertilizer on time. If the farmers are to reap a proper harvest, it is imperative that they get the required fertilizer at the right time. If not, all the blood, sweat and tears of the farmers would have been shed for nothing. This is what happened during several seasons in the past. The political leaders of Sri Lanka have once again failed to provide these farmers with the fertilizer that they need at a reasonable price at the right time, even for this season. There have been countless allegations of fraud and corruption taking place in all levels of government here in Sri Lanka. These include institutions in the health sector, fuel sector and agricultural sector. Allegations are now being leveled that a deal to import fish from China has been marred by corruption.
Fisheries Association alleged that authorities are attempting to illegally bring down a stock of fish into the country after purchasing them outside the accepted procurement process. Fisheries associations claim that they have received information that the stock of fish imported by the Ceylon Fisheries Corporation has reached the port. The unions reveal that they have received reliable information that attempts are being made to get the approval of the board of directors for accepting the stock of fish that was purchased without any board approval outside the accepted tender procedure. They point out that attempts are being made to get the documents endorsed by senior officials.
The State Minister of Fisheries and the Chairman of the Fisheries Corporation are acting outside of the procurement process and have deviated from the tender procedure. We asked for an investigation into this matter. The government has devalued the harvest of the local fishermen but is ready to give a higher value to fish imported from China. Therefore, we are informing the authorities to stop this unfair practice and to provide an explanation regarding this matter.
Sri Lanka is surrounded by a resource-rich sea. But still, local fishermen are suffering as they are unable to sell their catch for a reasonable price. Authorities responsible for the well-being of these fishermen don't even make an attempt to provide them with the facilities that they need. Minister of Fisheries Douglas Devananda, State Minister of Fisheries Pial Nishantha De Silva, Chairman of the Fisheries Corporation D.V. Uppul. What have these officials said about these allegations? Aren't they ashamed to import fish to a country surrounded by a sea rich in all forms of resources, like the Sea of Sri Lanka?
News first with the people.
Showers or thunder showers are expected over most parts of Sri Lanka tonight. According to the Department of Meteorology, heavy showers above 100 millimeters are also likely at some places in the central, Sabaragamuwa, Uva and eastern provinces. Furthermore, the department also notes that they advise multi-day fishing vessels to exercise caution while sailing in southwest waters and adjoining central West Bay of Bengal due to the possibility of the low pressure zone in those areas developing into a deep depression within the next 24 hours.
The water level of the Ravana Falls has increased due to heavy rains experienced in the Bandaravilla area. The police informs the public to refrain from bathing in waters due to the sudden rise in water levels. The section of the Colombo-Badula main road between Haputale and Beragala, which was blocked due to a landslide, has been reopened for vehicular movement. Badula District Secretary Prabhat Abhivardhana urged the public to drive with caution due to the possibility of landslides. 61 individuals from 15 families in the Kalkanda estate have been temporarily relocated due to the risk of landslides, with heavy showers battering the area. According to our correspondents, the families are being sheltered at the Kalpan Tamil Vidyalaya. Three sluice gates of the Polgola Mahabali Dam are still open due to the heavy showers in catchment areas.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa says that in order to make a proper assessment of the damage caused by the Express Pearl disaster, data should be collected from the fishing associations.
The opposition leader shared these remarks while attending a discussion on assessing the damages caused by the Express Pearl disaster. At the meeting of the Sectoral Oversight Committee on Environment, Natural Resources and Sustainable Development, chaired by Member of Parliament Ajit Manna Peruma, officials were questioned about how the damage was assessed.
Mr. Chairman, it is important to invite representatives from the Fisheries Association beyond the Panadura and Nigambo area limits and let them voice their concerns to this Oversight Committee about the detriments they suffered with regards to their catch. In the meantime, the Fisheries Ministry should present data to the expert panel. Afterwards, I request the data given by the Fisheries Ministry and the evidence put forth by the local fishermen be compared and contrasted and presented to the officials of this committee. I also propose that we strictly look into the compensation plan for this disaster because we hear from various sources that a meager amount of compensation is being given for the great deal of inconvenience suffered. Do not give reasons and say that no reports can be given as the matter is currently before courts.
Leader of the Jatika Janabalawega, Andra Kumar Disanayake, says that Sri Lanka can be developed if the country is rid of corruption. He was speaking at a district conference of the Jatika Janabalawegya in Matale.
මේ රටේ ආර්ථිකය මේ තරම් බංකොලොත් වීමට හේතුව මොකක්ද? මොකක්ද හිතන්නේ? එක
What is the reason for the economy of this country to go bankrupt? The number one reason is theft. The Auditor General recently said that the government has taken 8 trillion as loans for projects. Although 8 trillion has been taken as loans for projects, the total value of all the projects in the country is only 2 trillion. What does that mean? 6 trillion rupees has been wasted. It is unfathomable. We can't imagine this amount because we have never seen such an amount of money. We can't even imagine it. Fraud, corruption and waste are the main reasons for our country to go bankrupt. How do you fix this country? The first thing that should be done is to stop fraud, stop corruption, and we assure you that we will stop the waste. Then you might ask me, how can we believe you? For 75 years, how many times have we demanded for those involved in corrupt activities to be punished? Nandra Mitra Ekanayaka may remember that Chandrika Bandaranayaka said in 1994, she said that the UNP government has stolen the property of the people for 17 years and that when she comes into power, she will skin them alive at the Gallface Green. She said that she will skin them alive. This was said in 1994. You might have a doubt that everyone who comes into power promised to punish the corrupt, but all of them didn't. So why should you believe us? That is fair. In developing this country, we must build confidence in the people that the law will be enforced against everyone equally without any discrimination. We will do that. We will be responsible for enforcing the law against anyone disregarding their positions.
නීතිය ඉටු කිරීම සඳහා අපි වගකීම්.
Sri Lanka's official creditors are set to submit a debt restructuring proposal very soon.
Bloomberg reported, quoting a source with knowledge of the matter, that Sri Lanka's official creditors will submit a debt restructuring proposal very soon. According to the source, the creditor committee, co-led by India, Japan and France, has made significant progress in its technical work and a proposal will be made very soon to Sri Lanka. The source added that the committee has opened its meetings and shared analysis documents with China, as coordination between official creditors is necessary to ensure that the overall restructuring outcome allows Sri Lanka to meet the debt sustainability parameters of a $3 billion International Monetary Fund bailout.
5 suspects transporting narcotics worth over 4 billion rupees on board a multi-day vessel have been arrested.
Sri Lanka Navy, along with the Police Narcotics Bureau, found a stash of narcotics on board a vessel. The vessel was brought to the Dondra fishing harbour this morning, and the narcotics were discovered during an inspection conducted thereafter. The drugs found during the inspection included 180 kilograms of heroin and 31 kilograms of ice.
This is a network, and currently most of the people involved in this network are conducting operations from abroad. A large sum of money is being traded here between the people involved in this. We can be particularly successful in making arrests based on the information at this time, and therefore I would like to request, especially from the fishing community, provide us with information so that we can prevent the entry of these destructive drugs into the country.
APAD Sri Lanka facilitated a workshop to formulate protocols and standard operation procedures for swift water search and rescue in partnership with the Disaster Management Centre today.
Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management Sri Lanka facilitated a workshop to formulate protocols and standard operation procedures for swift water search and rescue in partnership with the Disaster Management Centre today. 162 personnel from the private sector and military have been trained by Japan APAD international trainers to date. These personnel can be effectively deployed prior to impending disasters in coordination to mitigate and respond timely. A core group of the trained personnel shared best practices, challenges and partnerships to frame protocols for early deployment of swift water rescuers and resources in partnership with DMC to complement government efforts. Retired Major General Sudhanta Ranasinghe, Director General of the DMC Anuja Senaviratne, Director Mitigation, Research and Development of the DMC Janath Hettiarachchi of WFP, Vajini Herat Gunaratna from the World Bank assisted the workshop as observers. APAD is working towards formulating protocols and SOPs for efficient and effective preparedness in search and rescue with civil-military coordination action in saving lives.
The Rosary procession organized at the Shrine of Our Lady of Madhu was held yesterday.
Bishop of the Mena Diocese Emmanuel Fernando, Bishop of the Kurunegala Diocese Harold Anthony Pereira, Auxiliary Bishop of Colombo Diocese Maxwell De Silva, and Bishop of the Anuradhapura Diocese Norbert Marshall led this procession.
The members of the region of Navy and all the faithful.
Holy Mass was celebrated in both Sinhala and Tamil before the Rosary procession took place. Many devotees from across the country participated in the procession.
After days of geopolitical efforts, the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza finally opened yesterday to allow desperately needed aid flow to Palestinians for the first time since Israel sealed off the territory.
India has sent 38.5 tons of humanitarian aid to Egypt's Sinai region for Palestinian civilians. India's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said an Indian Air Force Boeing C-17 transport plane carrying nearly 6.5 tons of medical and 32 tons of disaster relief material for the people of Palestine departed today for Egypt's El Arish airport. The material includes essential life-saving medicine, surgical items, tents, sleeping bags, sanitary utilities, water, purification tablets, among other necessary items. Meanwhile, Israel has vowed to step up its airstrikes on Gaza, which have already killed nearly 4,500 Palestinians in the fortnight since Hamas militants breached the border and massacred some 1,400 Israelis. Hamas said at least 55 people have been killed in overnight air raids in Gaza. It said more than 30 homes were destroyed in the hours after an Israeli military spokesperson said airstrikes on the Gaza Strip would intensify as its troops prepare for an anticipated ground offensive. Separately, Israel has carried out more deadly airstrikes in the occupied West Bank. The latest hit a mosque in Jenin, which the army described as a command center for terrorists. Israel's military has vowed to intensify airstrikes on Gaza and has warned Palestinians still in the north of the territory to flee south. A military spokesperson said this would allow Israel to minimize the risk to our forces in the next stage of the war. Israel has amassed tanks and troops on the boundary with Gaza ahead of the expected ground invasion, though the potential timing of this remains unclear. Meanwhile, foreign media reports that Hamas militants who were killed in the surprise attack on Israel on the 7th of October were found to have consumed a drug called Captagon pill, which is a synthetic amphetamine-type stimulant. The drug is produced in southern Europe and gets trafficked to consumer markets present in the Arabian Peninsula via Turkey. The reports of drugged militants surfaced after pills were discovered in the pockets of many Hamas terrorists who were killed on Israeli soil. Foreign media reported that the stimulant drug, which is also called the cocaine for the poor, gave the terrorists a sense of calmness and indifference when they killed civilians.
Still in news overseas, former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif arrived in Pakistan ending 4 years of self-imposed exile in London as he seeks to rally supporters ahead of parliamentary elections due in January.
Nawaz Sharif, Pakistan's thrice-elected former Prime Minister, has returned home after 4 years of self-exile in the United Kingdom to stand in next year's elections against former Premier Imran Khan. The 73-year-old veteran politician arrived by a chartered flight to Pakistan's capital Islamabad yesterday, after which he led a rally in his hometown Lahore. Pakistan is facing overlapping security, economic and political crises ahead of polls already pushed back to January 2024, with Khan's charges against corruption which he denies after he was removed in a no-confidence vote in April 2022.
The official ICC Men's Cricket World Cup India 2023.
India began taking on New Zealand in the 21st match of the 2023 ICC Cricket World Cup in India today. Cricket fans can watch and listen to all the action of the World Cup via the MTV NBC networks, the official local broadcast rights holder of the tournament. The matches are also being streamed live on www.citizenTV.lk. And with that, we wrap up Primetime News for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Do take care and good night.